Hello everybody, this video is for Wednesday, February the 6th. Today our learning target we're going to talk about is I can solve trig equations. Okay? And your directions say solve each equation between zeros less than or equal to theta less than 2 pi. That is very important, guys, reading your directions there. Okay, so it tells you that we're only worried about answers on these that are between 0 and 2 pi. Because you know things can go more than 2 pi, but we're not worried about them. We're just worried about 0 to 2 pi. Let's look. Can it be equal to 0? Yes, because you got that less than or equal to. However, if 2 pi was your answer, would you write it? Think about it. It just says less than. It doesn't say less than or equal to, so you would not include 2 pi. If it had said less than or equal to, 2 pi could have been your answer, okay? So it's very important to write, look, your answers are between 0 and 2 pi, including 0, but not 2 pi. It cannot be 2 pi. So, this is very, I don't want to say this word, you have to think backwards like you did for inverse, but this is easier than inverse trig because here it could be in any quadrant. You don't have to think about what quadrant. It could be wherever it's at. So we're not going to use the word inverse trig, but I do want you to think of it as thinking backwards, okay? The goal of this is to have your trig function by itself. Like this one is by itself. You got sine theta equals square root of 3 over 2. You have to think, which of the family, okay, let's think of our family here. We have pi over 6, which is square root of 3 over 2, 1/2. Pi over 4, which is square root of 2 over 2, square root of 2 over 2. And pi over 3, which is 1/2 square root of 3 over 2. So you got to know those. And you got to know your major points. You might want to draw you a picture for your major points. Okay? Now, you have to think on your unit circle, which family that has a sign of square root of 3 over 2? Well, that's pi over 3 family. It is positive. So, you know, the sign deals with your y value. Y value is positive. We got to think, where's our y value positive in the 4 quadrants? Quadrant 1 and quadrant 2. And we just talked about how that belongs to the pi over 3 family. Okay? So now we got to list all the pi over 3 family members that's in quad 1 and quad 2. So in quad 1, of course, pi over 3. And in quad 2 is 2 pi over 3. And that's your answers to that trig equation. Let's look at number 2, secant. We're used to working with sine, cosine, and tangent. So let's change this to cosine. Well, I can do that if I remember I need to flip this because secant and cosine are reciprocals of each other. So I just flipped it. Flip 2 is 1 over 2. Alright, so I got to think. Cosine is your x value. Which family has an x value negative 1/2? Pi over 3. Okay, so I'm going to put pi over 3. Your x is negative. In what quadrants would your x be negative? 2 and 3. So you got to think, okay, if you have to draw your picture every time, you can. Go to the pi over 3. Now, pi over 3 is in the first quadrant. I don't want that one. 2 pi over 3 is in the second quadrant. So, write that one down. 3 pi over 3 reduces. I don't have to worry about that one. 4 pi over 3 is in quad 3. So those are my answers for that particular equation. So you're thinking backwards. I wanted the pi over 3 family member that was in quad 2 and 3. Pi over 3 is in quad 1. 2 pi over 3 is here. 3 pi over 3 reduces. Don't worry about that one. 4 pi over 3 is here. Alright. Number 3. Tangent of theta equals square root of 3. Okay, I got to think, which of the family gives me square root of 3? I know it's not pi over 4. That's easy. That's 1. I have to think here and here. Remember, tangent is y divided by x. If I say this divided by that, that would flip this, and square root of 3 would be in the denominator, which you have to rationalize, so that's not it. But if I say this divided by that, square root of 3 would be stay on top. So if you said this divided by this, you wouldn't have to flip, you wouldn't have to rationalize here because this comes first. So it is the pi over 3 family. Your tangent is positive. Remember, your tangent would be positive in quadrants where the signs are the same. Quadrant 1, your x and y is positive, so a positive divided by positive is a positive. In quad 3, your x is negative and your y is negative. A negative divided by negative is positive. So we're looking for family members in quad 1 and quad 3. So I'm going to write that down, quad 1 and quad 3. Which family member of pi over 3 is in quad 1? I hope you're saying pi over 3. 2 pi over 3 would be here. 3 pi over 3 reduces 4 pi over 3 is here. So my answers are pi over 3 and 4 pi over 3. Got to know your unit circle trig to be able to do this. But on these 3, your trig function was all by itself. On number 4, you have one here. You need to get on both on the same side and get it by itself. So I'm going to move this one over. Negative 2 sine x, negative 2 sine x. 4 and negative 2 gives me 2 sine x equals square root of 2. I'm going to divide both sides by 2. Well, I know this is dealing with the family member pi over 4 family. It's a positive sign. That means the y value is positive. So that's going to be in quad 1 and quad 2 because your y is positive in 1 and 2. So let's figure out what family members. Well, of course, pi over 4 is in the first one. 2 pi over 4 reduces. 3 pi over 4 is in this one. So my answers to this equation is pi over 4 and 3 pi over 4. I need to look in 1 and 2 because my sign value is positive. Y is positive in quad 1 and 2. All right, number 5. I got to get my trig value by itself, so I'm going to move this over first. Then I'm going to divide both sides by 2. Tangent of theta equals 1. Remember, this is when you say y divided by x equals 1. Well, that is the pi over 4 family. It is positive. That means that both the x and y have to have same signs when you divide. So it's quad 1 and quad 3. So pi over 4 goes in quad 1. 2 pi over 4 reduces. 3 pi over 4 is here. 4 pi over 4 is here. This will be 5 pi over 4. So your answers would be pi over 4 and 5 pi over 4. This to me is easier than inverse trig. You're isolating your trig function, and then you got to think backwards. All right, guys, we'll go to the next one. Let's look at number 3. I'm going to get this by itself and bring the 4 over. You said, Mr. Ezra, this does not look like anything we've done here with 4 and 3, so do we have to keep going? Yes, because you're going to see what happens in just a minute. I'm going to divide both sides by 3. Now, we don't work with secant a lot, but I want to make that cosine. Well, I can make this is legal, I can make this cosine squared theta and just flip this. Okay? Watch what I did. I just made secant cosecant. I made secant cosine. I made secant cosine, or I made secant cosine and flip this. Now, to get rid of that square, you take the square root. Now, what you need to remember is when you take the square root of something, you got to put plus or minus. I don't know the square root of 3, so I'm going to leave that square root of 3. 4 square root of 4 is 2. Now that's something that we have worked with, okay? When you take the square root of something, you have to do plus or minus. Well, remember this is cosine, that's your x value. Which family has that? pi over 6. Well, guys, this is the plus or minus. So that means you want all 4 of them. That's in each of the quadrants. Okay, you want this one, positive. That's the negative cosine, negative, positive. So you're going to get all of them. So let's list the family. Pi over 6, 2 pi over 6 reduced, 3 pi over 6 reduced, 4 pi over 6 reduced, 5 pi over 6 is in quad 2. 6 pi over 6 reduces, 7 pi over 6 does not. So 7 pi over 6 would be 1. 8 pi over 6 reduces, 9 pi over 6 reduces, 10 pi over 6 reduces, 11 pi over 6 would be the other one. So you would indeed have 4 answers on that particular problem. Main thing is you can make this cosine if you remember to flip it and get rid of that square. You got to take the square root. Remember, when you take the square root of something, you have to put plus or minus. So on that one, it will include all 4 values from all 4 quadrants. Alright, number 7, I need to get the cosine by itself. I need to get them together over here. So I'm going to subtract this off each side. Now you didn't take the square root of that. That was already a square root, so you do not need to put plus or minus, okay? You didn't do it. Cosine x equals square root of 3 over 2. Once again, this is the x value square root of 3 over 2. That's going to be pi over 6. Your cosine is your x value. It's positive. That's in quad 1 and quad 4. So I'm looking for the members in quad 1 and 4. Well, I know in 1 it's pi over 6, and in quad 4 it's 11 pi over 6. Alright, number 8. I want to isolate this. I'm going to move the 4 over. 3 tangent squared x equals 1. Now I'm going to divide both sides by 3. Miss Trish, I don't remember anything looking like this. It will in just a minute. Now, you got to get rid of that square. When you take the square root of something, plus or minus. So tangent of x equals, well, square root of 1 is easy. That's square root of 1. We do not know the square root of 3. But can I leave that square root of 3 in the denominator? No, no, no. So I'm going to rationalize. Now, we are familiar with something like that. We know that comes from either the pi over 6 family or the pi over 3 family. Well, it's the pi over 6, because if you say y divided by x, this is 1/2 divided by square root of 3 over 2, it ends up going 1/2 times, if you remember that, 1/2 times 2 square root of 3. You have to cancel and rationalize. So it is the pi over 6 family. Now, we want the positive and negative. So that means it's coming out of all 4 quadrants. So you got pi over 6, 5 pi over 6, 7 pi over 6, and 11 pi over 6. So it's all 4 of those again. I really like these equations. I hope you do too. They're not too bad. They do get harder on the second and third lesson. This is only part 1 of trig equations. Alright, last example on page 9. Alright, so to get this by itself, I'm going to move this over. So I get 4 sine squared x equals 0. I'm going to isolate this by dividing both sides by 4. Sine squared x equals 0. When you take the square root of something, remember it's plus or minus, but you know 0 cannot be positive or negative, so it's just 0. Now remember, pay attention to this problem. Your sine is 0. That means your y value is 0. I look at my original here. My y value is 0 here and here, which is 0, pi, and 2 pi. But remember, my direction says 0 less than or equal to theta less than 2 pi. So I would only write 0 and pi for this one and not 2 pi. So my answer would be 0 pi. Now if this had been less than or equal to, then I could have put 2 pi, but it was not. So those are my answers for that particular problem. I hope all of you are having a good week, and I will see you back soon Friday. Make sure till Thursday your assignment is going to be page 19 in your notebook, 1 through 16 there, just like the problems we did, 1 through 16. 1 through 16, like cosecant, you know you have to change that sign and flip it, okay? Say cosecant again. So 1 through 16 in cotangent, change that to tangent, okay? So end up flipping. Alright, so 1 through 16, work this on a piece of notebook paper. You do not have enough room, and we will check these on Friday, okay? Alright, have a good week. Bye.